The credit card statement lay on my kitchen table like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. $17,000. That number burned itself into my brain, scorched into my thoughts with the kind of heat you feel when betrayal wears the face of your own child. Enchanted Gardens florist, $3,200. Bella Vista reception hall, $8,500. Morrison's catering, $4,800. Every line item, every innocent, blooming, beautifully italicized line, was a betrayal in disguise. The kind of betrayal that doesn't come from enemies, but from those who once called you Mom, with sticky fingers and sleepy eyes. 3 years ago, I added Zoe to my credit card, for emergencies only. And now here it was. Her entire wedding charged to that card like I was some kind of silent sponsor. All of it paid with my teacher's pension and the scraps left from Donald's life insurance. I sat there, 62 years old, staring at the total like it was some twisted monument to my foolishness. I had always thought I was a careful woman. A smart woman. I was wrong. I should have known. I should have seen this coming. Because for years now, love and my family had come attached to invoices. As I traced the numbers with trembling fingers, the silence of the house felt almost hostile. This home used to echo with laughter, chaos, footsteps. Now it echoed with everything unsaid. Everything lost. Donald's reading chair was still by the window, just like the day he died. I hadn't changed a single thing. I told myself it was grief. Maybe it was. But part of me believed that if I kept the chair, the mug, the folded blanket exactly as he left them, maybe the world wouldn't change too much around me. Maybe I wouldn't disappear. And then my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message that pulled me further into the absurdity of my life. Hey Mom. Can you pick up some groceries for us? Just the usual. Running late from wedding stuff. Thanks. The usual. As if I were the help. As if the $17,000 I unknowingly funded meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. I set the phone face down. My pension was $2,800 a month. After the mortgage, utilities, groceries, I maybe had $400 left, if I was careful. At this rate, I would be paying for her wedding until the end of my life. Maybe beyond. I started calculating in my head, the way I used to calculate lesson plans and grocery budgets and Christmas gifts. But this math led only to despair. The door slammed open. Jerry. Heavy footsteps thudding through the hallway like he owned the place. He'd moved back in 6 months ago, after his second divorce. Said he needed time to get back on his feet. At 34, Jerry had perfected the art of temporary problems becoming permanent lifestyle choices. Mom. I need to borrow your car tonight, he shouted from the hallway, not bothering to come in. Rebecca and I are going to look at that apartment in Riverside. Rebecca. The yoga instructor who treated my house like a personal resort. The one who left burning sage in the living room that triggered my allergies and said it was cleansing my aura. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Not until I was calm. Not until my voice wouldn't shake. Jerry, I called, even and controlled, can you come here, please? He appeared in the doorway, clearly annoyed. What's up? I'm in a hurry. I pointed to the statement. Did you know about this? He glanced at it, just a flick of the eyes, and looked away. I knew that look. I'd seen it when he was 10 and caught sneaking cookies before dinner. Know about what? Your sister. She charged $17,000 to my credit card for her wedding. He shrugged. Shrugged. Yeah, she mentioned something about that. Look, Mom, it's just money. You can afford it. She's stressed out, you know. Just money. My throat tightened. Jerry, this is my entire emergency fund. It's a loan, he said, waving it off. She'll pay you back eventually. Besides, you've got the house, your pension, you're fine. I stared at him. At the boy I had raised. The boy whose soccer games I never missed. Whose scraped knees I bandaged, whose dreams I supported. And now this man, who paid no rent, contributed nothing, was looking at me like I was being unreasonable. Then I asked, softly, carefully, when is Zoe's engagement dinner? Jerry hesitated. What? I haven't received an invitation. He shifted his weight. Oh. That. I think they already had it. Just a small thing. You know how Zoe is, she likes to keep things intimate. Intimate. A family gathering without the mother. The woman who raised her. Paid for her college. Covered her security deposit. Held her hand through breakups. The lie floated in the air between us like a fog, but I didn't chase it away. I folded the credit card statement. And the wedding? I asked. Am I still invited to that? He rolled his eyes. Of course, Mom. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. That word. That tone. As if asking to be included in my own daughter's life was unreasonable. The keys are on the hook, I said, quiet and cold. Have the car back by midnight. As he left, I sat back down in Donald's chair. My house, the one we built together, no longer felt like home. It felt like a storage unit for ungrateful adults who only showed up when they needed gas money or grocery runs. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Zoe. Forgot to mention, can you handle the catering deposit for next month? Just $2,000. Dad's life insurance should cover it, right? You're the best. Dad's life insurance. The one we'd saved so I wouldn't be a burden when I got older. That was supposed to pay for medical care if I got sick. Now it was a wedding fund? A backup account for my adult children? I didn't reply. I didn't cry. I sat there with the silence. But this time, the silence wasn't loneliness. It was decision. It was clarity. Now tell me, what time is it where you are, and what city are you watching from? I want to know who else out there understands what it feels like to be the one they always take from. The next morning, I woke up different. It wasn't something grand like the movies where a woman chops off her hair and buys a plane ticket to Paris. No, it was something smaller. Quieter. Like a wire inside me had finally snapped, not in a way that made me fall apart, but in a way that made me realize I could finally let go. For the first time in months, I'd slept through the night. No tossing. No turning. No calculating unpaid balances or replaying old arguments. Just sleep. And when I woke up, I knew exactly what I needed to do. At 7 a.m. sharp, I picked up the phone and dialed the credit card company. My voice was steady. I need to report unauthorized charges, I said. My daughter used my card without permission, for several months. The woman on the line was calm, professional, and surprisingly sympathetic. Yes, ma'am. We can freeze the card right now. Yes, we can dispute the transactions. Yes, we'll begin the investigation. I just need the dates and amounts, $17,000. And every single penny had a name. A flower vendor. A cake artist. A venue that had probably served more strangers than friends. Ma'am, the woman said, I do need to inform you that if the charges are deemed fraudulent, the cardholder may face criminal charges. I understand, I said, and I meant it. My second call was to my bank. I'd like to remove someone from my account, I told them. My son Jerry. He's been an authorized user, but I'm revoking that access immediately. The woman at the bank asked a few routine questions. 10 minutes later, Jerry's access to my checking and savings accounts was terminated. His debit card, my debit card, would be declined by lunchtime. My third call was to Janet Morrison, my lawyer. She had helped us through the mess of Donald's estate 4 years ago. She was sharp, kind, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. Sandy, she said, her voice warm, it's been a while. What can I do for you? I need to revise my will, I said. And I need to talk to you about a case of unauthorized credit card use. We scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. And just like that, before 9 a.m., I had taken back control of my life. I sat in my car outside Riverside Elementary. I had taught there for 32 years. I used to watch children leap from minivans with oversized backpacks and missing teeth. Now I sat quietly, watching other parents do the same ritual, my own life reduced to a memory that no one passing by would ever guess at. I wondered how many of these mothers would one day sit in their kitchens staring at a $17,000 betrayal and realize that love, real love, does not come with a price tag. My phone rang. Zoe. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. The fourth time, I picked up. Mom. Her voice was frantic. Something's wrong with your credit card. The florist just called saying the payment for the centerpieces didn't go through. What's happening? I took a breath. The card has been frozen, I said calmly. What? Why? Mom, the wedding is in 6 weeks. I'm aware, I said. There was a pause. And then her voice shifted, soft, coaxing, the exact tone she'd used at 16 when she wanted the car keys. Mom, come on. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Just call them and tell them it's okay. These are legit charges. Are they? I asked. Because I don't recall authorizing $17,000 in wedding expenses. Another pause. You said I could use the card for emergencies. A wedding is not my emergency, Zoe. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, thinking, calculating. Mom, you're being unreasonable. This is my wedding. Your only daughter's wedding. Don't you want me to be happy? That question. That one line had shackled me for decades. Don't you want me to be happy? Don't you love us enough to help? Don't you want to be included? I want you, I said slowly, to pay for your own wedding. Like adults do. We can't afford, then perhaps you should plan a wedding you can afford. I hung up before she could reply. The phone rang again almost immediately. I turned it off. At 11 a.m., I was at the hardware store. I bought new locks for the front and back doors. The elderly clerk, Mr. Nelson, whom I'd known for years, helped me load them into the car. Changing locks is easier than most people think, he said cheerfully. Just follow a video online. I smiled. Thanks, Mr. Nelson. When I got home, Jerry's car was already in the driveway. Rebecca's yoga mat was sprawled across the living room floor. The scent of burning sage hit me like a punch, sickly sweet, invasive. They were in the kitchen. Rebecca, blending a smoothie with my fruit. Jerry, at the table, scrolling through his phone. Mom, finally, Jerry said without even looking up. Something's wrong with my debit card. And Zoe's been trying to call you all morning. She's freaking out. I'm aware, I said. I closed your access. He looked up. What? I closed your access to my accounts. And I froze the credit card. Rebecca blinked. Sandy, what's going on? Are you okay? Jerry thought maybe you had a stroke or something, making all these weird financial decisions. Weird financial decisions. Rebecca, I said evenly, I need you to gather your things and leave. She laughed. What? Why? Because this is my home. And you don't live here. Jerry stood up. Mom, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. Rebecca is my girlfriend. She's welcome here. Not anymore. This is ridiculous. Over some credit card mix-up. Zoe will pay you back. She always does. When has she ever paid me back? I asked, locking eyes with him. The car insurance in college? Her apartment deposit? The loan for her master's degree? That's different. That's what parents do. No. That's what I did. Past tense. Rebecca had gone very still. Maybe I should go, she whispered. Yes, I said. You should. Jerry's voice sharpened. If she leaves, I leave too. There it was. The threat. The weapon of choice for adult children who'd learned that love could be leveraged. I sipped my coffee. Your choice. But if you leave, you don't get to come back whenever it's convenient. His expression faltered. You don't mean that. But I did. I finally did. Jerry didn't slam the door this time. He closed it hard enough to rattle the hinges, but not quite enough to be defiant. That small restraint told me something. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The moment the lock clicked behind him, I exhaled. My kitchen was quiet again. No smoothie blender. No sage. No scrolling phones. No entitlement humming under the surface like a radio station I could never quite shut off. By 3 p.m., I'd installed the new locks. 2 turns of a screwdriver and just like that, the doors no longer opened for people who believed they had the right to take up space in my life without giving anything back. I kept one spare key and placed it in my jewelry box, right next to Donald's wedding ring. It felt like I was putting something sacred away, a piece of a chapter one had just finished writing. At 4 o'clock, I was sitting across from Janet Morrison. Her office smelled like old books and leather, nostalgia wrapped in legal permanence. Tell me everything, she said. I did. The charges. The lies. The years of being used. I didn't sugarcoat it, didn't soften the facts like I might have in the past. Janet listened, pen moving fast. Her brows furrowed deeper with every new detail. "How long has this been going on?" she asked finally. "Years," I said. "But it escalated after Donald died. I think they see me more as a resource than a person now." Janet nodded slowly. "Sandy, what you're describing? It's financial elder abuse." The words hit me like a bell ringing in an empty room. Not a dramatic accusation. Just a fact. "I'm not pressing charges," I said. "I'm not trying to destroy my children. I just want to stop being destroyed by them." "Understood," Janet replied, flipping to a fresh page. "Let's start with your will." My current will left everything equally to Jerry and Zoe. The house. The accounts. The remainder of Donald's policy. Jerry was the executor. I looked at Janet. "I want to change all of it. I want the house and half my assets to go to charity. The kids can split the remainder of my retirement accounts, but only after they've repaid what they've taken." Janet's pen didn't hesitate. "Which charities?" "The Literacy Foundation I used to volunteer for. The animal shelter downtown. Something for older adults without support, people like me, but without options." "And the executor?" "You. If you'll do it." She looked up. With pride. Next, we discussed the credit card charges. The company had already opened an investigation. The chances of reversing the $17,000 were high. But Janet leaned in. "Sandy, are you prepared for the fallout? They won't take this quietly." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. "Zoe." I declined it. They've been calling all day. "Jerry already moved out. He's convinced I'll change my mind when I get lonely." "Will you?" Janet asked softly. It was a good question. Would I? I thought of the way my kitchen felt that morning. Still. Clear. Mine. I thought of how I'd slept the night before, fully, deeply. I thought of the peace I'd felt installing those locks. Not vengeance. Not anger. Just peace. "No," I said. "I won't." Janet smiled. "Good. Let me draft the changes. You'll have the final version by Friday. And if they begin to harass you, we'll talk about further legal protections. You're not alone in this, Sandy. I've seen this happen more than you think." After I left her office, I stopped at the grocery store. I didn't buy for a family. I bought for me. 1 chicken breast. Fresh vegetables. A bottle of wine I'd been saving for someday. Well, someday had come. Back home, I began cooking. A simple meal. Quiet music. No one shouting from the hallway. No one asking for rides, money, favors. I was halfway through chopping parsley when I heard a knock. At the back door stood a woman I barely knew, Elizabeth Duncan. My neighbor from 2 houses down. We'd exchanged hellos. Weather comments. Admired each other's gardens from afar. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, holding up a casserole dish. "I heard yelling earlier. Saw someone leave with luggage. I just wanted to check in." She looked embarrassed. I felt a pang of something unfamiliar. Connection? Thank you, I said. It's been a hard day. Would you like some company while you handle it? She asked. I made too much lasagna. And eating alone gets old. I looked at her, really looked at her. Another widow. Another woman who'd done the long, quiet grieving. Who knew what it meant to be needed for what you do instead of who you are. I was just opening a bottle of wine, I said. I'll get the glasses, she smiled. 40 minutes later, we were at my kitchen table, laughing softly over wine and lasagna. Elizabeth had 2 grown children, both living across the country. They called every Sunday. Checked on her health. Her diet. But she said, sometimes I feel like they're just checking off a box. Visit with elderly mother, completed. At least they call, I said, then immediately felt guilty. Your children don't? And somehow, I told her everything. The money. The exclusions. The manipulation. I didn't sugarcoat it for her either. Elizabeth didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. Just nodded, quietly, in the places that needed it. How do you feel now? She asked when I finished. Terrified, I admitted. And relieved. And guilty for feeling relieved. The guilt will fade, she said confidently. The relief will grow stronger. How do you know? She smiled. Her face, soft and lined and alive, was the face of a woman who'd made hard choices and lived through them. Because I did the same thing with my sister. Different situation. Same pattern. I spent years sacrificing my peace for family harmony. Then one day, I stopped. Do you regret it? I regret not doing it sooner. My phone buzzed with a message from Zoe. Mom, please call me back. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry if I upset you. Please don't punish me. I showed the message to Elizabeth. She scanned it, then looked up. She's still playing the victim, she said. Notice how she says if she upset you. Not sorry for what she did. Just trying to shift the narrative. I stared at the text again. She was right. I deleted it. Without replying. Elizabeth nodded. Good. We talked until nearly 10 p.m. About books. Gardening. Widowhood. Children who saw their parents as resources. And the bravery it took to say, no more. When she left, promising to return the dish, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The beginning of a friendship that asked nothing of me but me. The morning light filtered through the curtains like it always had. But everything felt different. I wasn't waiting on the next request, the next crisis, the next carefully crafted manipulation. I was simply awake. Alone. And at peace. That peace lasted exactly until 9:07 a.m. The first knock was sharp, hurried. Through the curtain, I saw her. Zoe. Still in the clothes from yesterday. Hair pulled back, face blotchy. She'd been crying, probably for hours. I didn't rush to open the door. I made coffee. Toasted some bread. I took my time. Because for once, my comfort came first. At 8:30, I opened the front door. Mom, she whispered, hoarse. We need to talk. Good morning, Zoe, I said. You look terrible. She stumbled up the steps, swaying slightly. I didn't sleep. I haven't eaten. The wedding's ruined. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, I said calmly. I'm simply not doing things for you anymore. She blinked. The venue canceled. They called yesterday when the final payment didn't go through. 2 years of planning, Mom. 2 years. I motioned toward the porch chair. Sit down. We're going to have a conversation, but not the one you're expecting. She sat on the edge like she was waiting to flee. If this is about paying you back, fine. I'll pay you back after the honeymoon, once David and I are settled. No, I said. She blinked. What do you mean to know? I mean I'm not fixing your problems anymore. I'm not paying for your choices. I'm not letting myself be treated like an ATM with a house attached. You're my mother. Yes, I said softly. And for 31 years, I've shown you what unconditional love looks like. I've sacrificed, supported, enabled. And in return, you've learned to treat me like a resource. Not a person. She started crying again. So what? You're just going to abandon me? Let me be humiliated? You're having some midlife crisis or something. I'm 62, Zoe. If anything, it's a late life awakening. My phone buzzed. A message from Elizabeth. Coffee later? Reinforcements ready if needed. The timing, the simplicity, it made my spine straighten even more. I need you to leave now, I said. You can come back when you're ready to have an adult conversation about how we move forward. An adult conversation, she hissed. You want adult? Fine. Here's adult. You're a lonely old widow who's driving away the only people who care about you. You'll end up dying alone, and it'll be your own fault. There it was. The cruelty. The weapon of last resort. Goodbye, Zoe, I said, and closed the door. She banged on it. Cried. Pleaded. Threatened. Then finally, silence. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for 20 more minutes, probably calling Jerry, David, anyone who might talk me down. They tried. By noon, the cavalry arrived. First, Jennifer. Jerry's ex-wife. She was always polite, always tried to stay out of drama. But here she was on my porch, hands clasped. Hi, Sandy. Jerry asked me to come talk to you. Said there's a family emergency? There's no emergency, I said. There's a consequence. I invited her in. Made coffee. Told her the truth. Not the edited version, the real one. The financial abuse. The exclusions. The demands. The manipulations. She listened, her expression twisting with discomfort. I had no idea, she said finally. Jerry made it sound like you were always happy to help. I was, I said. Past tense. She looked down at her cup. He's really struggling. The divorce, his job, Jennifer, I said gently, you raised 2 children alone on a teacher's salary. Jerry is struggling because he's never had to live within his means. She left shortly after, looking like she regretted coming. At 2 p.m., the next knock came. David. Zoe's fiancé. Clean-shaven, neatly dressed, but something in his eyes looked shaken. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, "do you have a minute?" I invited him in. We sat on the back porch, Donald's roses in bloom. "I'm sorry," he said. "Zoe told me about the charges, and I didn't know. I really didn't. She said you offered to help." "She lied." He nodded. "She told me everything was covered. That your help was a gift. I offered to contribute more, but she insisted it was all taken care of." I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't a bad man. Just a man caught in someone else's story. "What will you do now?" I asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "I asked Zoe if we could go to counseling. Maybe postpone the wedding. She said I was being manipulated by a bitter old woman who couldn't stand to see her daughter happy." That hit me, but it didn't knock me down. "Not anymore." "And what did you say to that?" "I said if she couldn't see what she did to you, then maybe we weren't ready to get married." We sat in silence for a moment. He looked out over the garden. "I love her," he said quietly. "But I'm not sure I can marry her." I didn't speak. I let him have his silence. His thoughts. He finally stood, thanked me, and left. An hour later, I called Elizabeth. 10 minutes later, she was at my door. Chinese takeout in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other. "Tough day?" she asked. "Educational," I said. "I'm learning exactly who my children are when they can't get what they want." We sat on the porch, the sun setting, the world quiet. My phone rang. "Jerry." "Mom," he said, "this has gone far enough. You're destroying the family over money. Zoe's a mess. David's threatening to cancel the wedding. Everyone's calling me. You're turning people against us." "I'm telling the truth," I said. "If the truth turns people against you, then the problem is not the truth." There was a pause. Then came the threat. "We're thinking about having you declared incompetent." I almost laughed. "On what grounds?" "Sudden change in behavior. You're making irrational financial decisions. You've shut everyone out." "Jerry," I said calmly, "I've revised my will. I've worked with my attorney. I've documented everything. If you want to challenge my mental state, you're welcome to try. But Janet Morrison is very thorough." Silence. "This isn't over," he said. "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." Elizabeth topped off our wine glasses. "How do you feel?" "Like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff," I said. "Terrified. But also free." "The terrified part fades," she said, raising her glass. "The freedom gets stronger." The next morning, my garden greeted me with a quietness that felt earned. It had rained overnight. The soil was dark, rich, fragrant, exactly how Donald liked it. I stood out there for a while, just breathing. The chaos, the voices, the threats, they hadn't made it into this small corner of the world. It belonged to me. No one else. 3 weeks had passed since the locks were changed, the accounts were frozen, and the boundaries laid like stone. And in those 3 weeks, no one had come to the door again. No frantic knocks. No late-night sobs on the porch. No accusations about loneliness. No one asking for money. Just silence. Elizabeth and I had found a rhythm. Morning walks. Afternoon coffees. Shared casseroles. She even introduced me to a widow from her church who'd also cut ties with an abusive daughter years ago. We laughed, we cried, we grew tomatoes. It was the first time in years I'd been part of something that didn't demand pieces of me in return. Then one day, a silver car pulled into my driveway. It wasn't Zoe's. It was David's. He stepped out looking thinner, older, but also more grounded. He carried an envelope in his hand and wore a face that said he'd made a decision. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "Do you have a few minutes?" "Of course," I said. "Would you like some iced tea?" We sat on the back patio, in the very spot Donald used to sip his morning coffee and inspect his roses. The garden was blooming again. So was I think. "The wedding's off," David said simply. No hesitation. No drama. I set down my glass carefully. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" he asked, without accusation. I thought about it. "I'm sorry you're hurting," I said slowly. "And I'm sorry that Zoe wasn't the person you hoped she'd be. But I'm not sorry that you found out now. Not after the vows." He nodded, then handed me the envelope. It was a cashier's check. $8,500. "David," I said, shocked, "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," he said. "It's my responsibility. I benefited from that money, even if I didn't know it was taken without your consent." I stared at the check. "What did Zoe say when you told her you were bringing me this?" His laugh was dry. "Zoe doesn't know I'm here. We haven't spoken since I called off the wedding. I asked her to talk honestly about money, about family. She called me weak, said I was being manipulated by you." "And what did you say?" "I told her that if she couldn't see what she'd done to you, or how she treated me, then maybe we weren't ready to be married." We sat in silence, sipping tea while Elizabeth's cat hunted butterflies in the neighbor's yard. David looked down at his hands. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you know? How did you finally decide to stop enabling her?" I took a moment. "I realized I was grieving someone who was still alive," I said. "I kept trying to be the mother I used to be, for a daughter who no longer existed. And that grief, it became unbearable. I had to choose between mourning her forever or choosing myself." He nodded slowly, eyes filled with something between understanding and awe. I think I was doing the same. Before he left, I hugged him. A long, firm, honest hug. "You're a good man," I told him. "I want to be," he replied. That evening, I was on the porch with a book when a beat-up sedan pulled into my driveway. Zoe stepped out. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was messy. Gone was the confident woman with designer heels and a Pinterest wedding. She looked human. Maybe for the first time in a long time. She wasn't alone. A young woman followed her, probably Melissa, her college roommate. Zoe stopped at the base of the porch. "We need to talk," she said. "Good evening, Zoe," I said. I nodded politely to her friend. "Hello. This is Melissa," Zoe said quickly. "Look, I know you're mad at me, but things have gone too far. David's gone. The wedding's off. I'm staying on Melissa's couch. I need to come home. There it was. The full circle moment. When every bridge had burned and the mother they once discarded suddenly became useful again. No, I said. What do you mean to know? This is my home. This was your home. You made it clear I wasn't family enough to invite to your engagement dinner. But now that you need something, now I'm family again. Melissa shifted awkwardly. Maybe I should wait in the car, maybe you should, I agreed gently. Once Melissa was gone, Zoe stepped onto the first step of the porch. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I don't have anywhere else to go. You're 31, I said. You have a job. A degree. Options. You're not homeless. You're just uncomfortable. And I won't rescue you from that anymore. So what do you want from me? She snapped. An apology? Zoe, I want you to understand what you did. Not just say sorry like it's a magic word. I am sorry. What are you sorry for? For using the card. For not inviting you. For saying you'd die alone. That's what you did. I'm asking why you're sorry. Are you sorry because it hurt me, or because it didn't work out for you? Her silence was loud. Telling. Zoe, I've spent 3 decades bending over backward to make sure you were happy. I let you take, and take, and take, until I didn't recognize myself anymore. This is who I am now. I'm done giving until I'm empty. So we just don't have a relationship anymore? We can. But it'll be built on mutual respect, not dependency. And if you can't offer that, then yes, we won't. She stood there for a long moment. Then turned and walked back to the car without another word. And you know what? I didn't cry. The next morning, my phone rang before I'd even poured my coffee. Jerry. I stared at the screen for a moment, debating. Then I picked up. Zoe told me what happened last night, he said, skipping any greeting. Mom, this is insane. She's your daughter. She's also an adult, I said evenly. And she made adult decisions. I'm letting her live with the adult consequences. You're destroying this family. No, Jerry. I'm choosing not to be destroyed by it anymore. There was a pause. Then came something I didn't expect. So that's it? You're just done with us? I'm done being used by you, I replied. There's a difference. He hesitated. What if we change? What if we, I don't know, pay you back, treat you better? It was the first time either of them had ever even hinted that they were the problem. Then we'll see what happens, I said. But change doesn't mean saying the right thing to get your privileges back. Change means becoming someone who doesn't need to prove it. He didn't answer. I let the silence stretch. I wasn't afraid of silence anymore. After we hung up, I walked out to the garden. Donald's roses were blooming wildly, climbing over the trellis like they were reaching for something better. The garden had always been his pride, but lately it had become mine too. A symbol of care. Of growth. Of tending to something not because it gave back, but because I wanted it to thrive. That afternoon, I stopped by the literacy center where I used to volunteer. The place looked the same. The smell of dry paper, ink, and slightly burnt coffee felt like home. I signed up for 2 afternoons a week. Not out of obligation. Not because someone begged me, but because I missed the joy of giving to people who appreciated it, who earned it. A young woman at the desk smiled at me with genuine warmth. "We're so glad to have you back, Mrs. Patterson." And for the first time in a long time, someone said my name without needing something behind it. That evening, as I watered the tomatoes, Elizabeth strolled over with a grin and 2 cups of lemonade. "Guess who called me?" she said. "Who?" "The new widow from your old school. The one I introduced you to. She asked if I'd bring you to our coffee group Thursday morning." I blinked. "You have a group?" She laughed. "We're like a secret society. Women who finally said enough is enough. We drink coffee. We share stories. We don't apologize for surviving." It sounded like a dream. "I'd love that," I said. The next day, I received a letter in the mail. From the credit card company. The charges had officially been ruled as unauthorized. The full $17,000 was reversed. They wouldn't be pursuing legal action against Zoe, though I knew they had every right. I placed the letter in my drawer next to David's check. Not because I needed the proof anymore, but because I wanted a record that I had fought and won. That same afternoon, Elizabeth and I walked to the farmer's market. On our way back, my phone buzzed again. A message from Zoe. "I've been thinking about what you said. I still don't agree with everything, but I understand more than I did before. I'm not asking to come back. I just wanted you to know I'm applying for a second job and looking at cheaper housing. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know I'm trying." I showed the message to Elizabeth, who read it silently, then handed it back. "Well," she said, "that's not a miracle. But it's a start." I didn't reply. Not yet. Let her words stand without response, without reward. The next week passed quietly. I had lunch with women who understood my exhaustion without needing it explained. I read 3 books. I cleaned out a closet that had been untouched since Donald's funeral. I donated bags of items, not because I needed the space, but because I was finally releasing the weight of holding onto a version of life that no longer served me. On Friday, a letter arrived from Janet. My revised will, ready for signing. I reviewed every clause slowly. The house, to charity. The accounts, split, but conditional. The rest, protected. As I signed, I felt the pen press against paper like a seal of reclamation. I was no longer a woman who let guilt dictate her legacy. I was a woman who'd rewritten her story. That evening, as the sky turned gold and purple, I sat on the porch with Elizabeth again. She brought over her famous lemon cake. I brought the wine. "You look different," she said, studying me. "I feel different." "Like what?" "Like a woman who finally stopped waiting for her children to change, and decided to change herself instead." She smiled. "Welcome to the club." We laughed until the stars came out. 3 weeks had passed since the final phone call, the last desperate knock, the final manipulation attempt. I could almost mark time now by the absence of chaos. Mornings began with birdsong, not budgeting crises. Afternoons drifted with books, gardening gloves, and the quiet clink of coffee cups. Nights came without dread. Without dread. That alone felt like a miracle. Then, one morning, as I was deadheading the roses along the side fence, a car pulled into my driveway. Not Zoe's. Not Jerry's. A rental. Clean. Modest. Cautious. David stepped out, holding an envelope. His expression was steady, but his eyes had that look of someone who had aged 10 years in a matter of weeks. Life had come at him fast, and he'd faced it. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "Sandy," I corrected gently. "Come sit." We settled on the back patio, just two people who'd survived the same storm from opposite sides. The roses were in full bloom. Donald would have been proud. "I came to give you this," David said, handing me the envelope. Inside was another cashier's check. The remaining balance. Another $8,500. Combined with his earlier payment, it totaled the full amount Zoe had charged to my card. "You already gave me half," I said softly. "You don't owe me this." "I do," he said. "I benefited from it." I didn't know the money was stolen, but I still sat at tastings, chose napkin colors, picked out playlists. "That's not nothing." I looked at him. This young man. Thoughtful. Honest. Everything my daughter had overlooked in favor of control. "What did Zoe say about you bringing this?" I asked. "She doesn't know," he replied, his tone neutral. "We haven't spoken since the night I canceled the wedding. She packed her things and moved back in with Melissa. I told her I couldn't move forward unless we had a real conversation about respect, boundaries, honesty. She said I was being manipulated by a bitter old woman." My mouth twitched, but not with pain this time, with a kind of tired amusement. "She said that about me?" David chuckled. "I told her that bitter old woman showed me more integrity in 1 week than most people do in a lifetime." We sat in silence for a while, sipping iced tea. The air buzzed with bees and sun-warmed peace. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "And I don't mean it as an insult." "Go ahead." "How did you do it? Not just the money thing, but the line you drew. Most people talk about boundaries. You enforced them." I took a breath. I had to. It was that, or lose myself. I realized I'd become the kind of woman who disappeared into everyone else's life, quietly erasing her own needs just to keep the peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace. It's surrender. He nodded slowly. "I think I was headed down that same path." "Then be grateful you stopped. You're young. You still have time to build something better. Something based on mutual love, not debt." When he left, he hugged me again. This time tighter. More like a son than a stranger. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the front porch. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and soil. Across the street, Mrs. Duncan was tending her garden. She looked up, waved. I waved back. I felt something shift inside me. Not relief. Not triumph. Something deeper. A reconnection with a self I'd forgotten existed. Then, headlights. A familiar car I hadn't seen in weeks. Zoe. She stepped out slowly. No makeup. Hair frizzy. Shoulders tight. There was no performance in her walk. No show in her stance. She was carrying nothing. Not a purse. Not a phone. Just herself. She approached the porch like a child returning after running too far away. "I don't want anything," she said before I could even speak. "No money. No favors. Not even forgiveness. I just wanted to say something." I nodded. "Go ahead." "I was wrong," she said. "About everything. The card. The wedding. The dinner. What I said to you. All of it." I didn't move. Didn't speak. Let her continue. I think I've always loved you for what you could give. Not for you. And I didn't even realize it until you stopped giving. When you changed. I was so angry. But it wasn't because you betrayed me. It was because you finally forced me to look at myself. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't expect you to believe me," she added. "I know I have to prove it." I looked at her, really looked. There were bags under her eyes. Her nails were chipped. But her voice? It wasn't asking anymore. It was owning. "I'm not here to offer you a key," I said. "But I'm also not closing the door forever. If you're willing to build something real with me, something that doesn't involve credit cards and conditions, then we can try." Tears slid down her face. "I'd like that," she whispered. She didn't ask to come inside. She just nodded, turned, and walked back to her car. And that's when I knew I hadn't lost my daughter. I'd simply refused to participate in her illusion any longer. And that choice had finally given her space to face herself. The siege was over. Not because I surrendered. But because I endured. Because I waited out the storm, fortified my walls, and tended the garden of myself until something better bloomed. 1 month. That's how long it had been since I stopped being the woman who said yes to everything and everyone. Since I stopped paying for silence, begging for inclusion, hoping that if I just gave enough, I'd be loved enough. And I hadn't just survived that month. I'd come alive in it. I was sitting in Donald's old chair by the window one Sunday morning, reading the final pages of a novel Elizabeth lent me, when my phone rang. The name on the screen surprised me, Jerry. I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. "Hi, Mom," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. It was uncertain. Careful. "Hi, Jerry," I replied. "I just wanted to say. I've been thinking. A lot. About everything." I waited. "You were right. About the way I used you. About how I acted entitled to your time, your money, your space. I didn't mean to hurt you. But I did. And I see it now." The words weren't perfect. But they were his. "I've started looking for my own place," he continued. "Something small. Affordable. Rebecca and I, well, we're taking a break." She didn't really get what I've been trying to work through. And honestly, I needed space to figure out who I am without relying on someone else to keep me comfortable. I looked out the window at Donald's roses. They'd grown strong stems this season. No longer fragile. Resilient. "I'm glad to hear that, Jerry. I'd like to visit sometime. Just for coffee. Not to ask for anything. Just to talk. When you're ready." "Not today," I said gently. "But soon." He didn't argue. He just said, "Okay. Soon." After we hung up, I sat with the silence. Not because I needed to recover, but because it was beautiful. The sound of nothing expected. No crisis hiding in the next ring. No apology laced with manipulation. Just space. To breathe. To exist. That afternoon, Elizabeth and I hosted a small garden tea for a few women from her widows group. We set up folding chairs and mismatched cups under the shade of the old maple tree in my backyard. Someone brought lemon scones. Someone else brought memories. We shared stories of motherhood, mistakes, grief, rebirth. One woman, a former nurse named June, told me, "You remind me of my sister. She let her kids take everything from her. Even her name. Now she lives in a tiny apartment and calls me every week just to feel seen." It reminded me of myself. Who I used to be. Another woman leaned in and whispered, "It's not selfish to want peace. It's sacred." After everyone left, Elizabeth stayed behind to help clean up. As we gathered plates and stacked cups, she said, "Do you ever miss them?" I didn't ask who she meant. I knew. "I miss the version of them I thought they were," I said. "But not the way they treated me." She nodded. "That's honest." We shared the last 2 slices of lemon cake on the porch, feet tucked under us like teenagers, sipping iced tea and gossiping about tomatoes and mulch. As the sun set, my phone buzzed again. A message from Zoe, "I got the second job. It's not glamorous, but it pays. I've started a savings account. I named it Dignity. I thought you'd like that." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then typed, "I do. Nothing else." She didn't reply. And that was okay. Because sometimes healing isn't a tearful reunion. Sometimes it's a quiet exchange of truth. A few days later, I received a card in the mail. Not a text. Not an email. A real envelope. With handwriting I recognized immediately. Jerry. Inside was a simple note, "Mom, I'm not expecting to fix decades in a few weeks. But I've started therapy. I've started cooking for myself. I've started asking how I can give instead of take. Thank you for teaching me, even when I didn't want to learn. Jerry." I placed the card in a wooden box Donald once made for me. It now held little keepsakes that actually meant something: David's check stub, Elizabeth's first handwritten recipe, and now this note. That weekend, I volunteered at the literacy center again. A boy named Mateo hugged me after we finished reading Charlotte's Web. He said, "You smell like flowers and soup." I took it as the highest compliment I'd received in years. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine and sat alone on the porch. The moon was high. My house was clean. My mind was quiet. I wasn't waiting for a knock. I wasn't dreading the next phone call. I was simply me. A woman who had given everything, and finally remembered she could keep something for herself. A mother who had finally realized that real love doesn't ask you to bleed to prove it. A person who had redefined family, not by blood, but by behavior. And maybe, just maybe, a woman who had planted something deeper than roses in her garden. Something called self-worth.